Faust! This makes the 11th party this month. This is madness. 12, actually. Faust points to the table across the room. A body lays upon it. The chest cavity is split wide open, but the rest of the body is covered by a white cloth. The silhouette of a face, shoulders, arms, legs, and feet can be seen. Splotches of red can also be seen at points where the body makes contact with the sheets. Iomade, help us. Faust turns his attention to cleaning his tools. You have to have found something by now. Anything. The council is talking about setting a curfew at sundown. The council feels it's the work of a cult or something more nefarious. Bah. The city council wouldn't know their left from their right unless someone bribed them. Maybe so, Faust, but there be good people here, and they are afraid. I, as constable to the council, I have to get them something better to work with more than simple rumors and bedtime stories. Then there is the church who be saying there be an evil spirit or vampire or some lich. Tell me, Lars, why hasn't the church used one of its many divination spells? Perhaps talk with the dead? It seems you're suffering a similar malady as our friend here. Let me help you out. This very real person is going to great lengths to ensure their tracks are hidden. The church is out at every corner, waving around their holy symbols, hoping that some dastardly undead abomination will show themselves. Do you really think whoever's doing this is dumb enough to get caught like this? Sorry, friend, what was that? No. Correct. Now, we will solve this mystery with science and deductive reasoning, just as it should be. Lars and Faust take a seat at the desk opposite of each other. Now, the 12 dead have been killed 2 to 3 days apart, after sundown and seemingly at random times during the night. Their bodies are then drained of all blood, and their flesh is nearly mummified. Additionally, and very importantly, their lower mandibles, tongue, and throat are cut out. Furthermore, the victims appear to be unrelated both by family, social status, and geography within the city. Well, that's not entirely true. Oh? 9 of them had at one time worked or attended at the Sinkomakti University of Sciences. Sinkomakti is one of the city's biggest employers. It's no surprise. But that is an important clue. Have you investigated other family members, or next of kin, to correlate any leads? Only a few. Tongues have been tight, and I fear people are afraid to say anything at all, family or friends. You said 9. What of the others? Just citizens. Nothing really related about them. Except what? Well, one of them was a tax collector. Yes, well, I can't say that he will be missed all too much. No, I mean, he had some debts, and I think it might be good to follow up on. Maybe see if it's linked in any way. Yes, that's a good idea. Well, perhaps I should be getting back to work. Right, let me know if you figure anything out with your dissections. Faust, take care. And you too. Faust goes back to the dissection table and continues his work. Lars leaves out the front door. Constable, sir. Yes? Sir, we have a 12th victim. Damn, not another one. Win. Just now, sir. Hold on, you said 12? Yes, sir, 12, sir. Where did you find it? Behind the warehouse at the docks. Go bring the team here with the body. I have something to take care of first. Lars walks back into the morgue and finds Faust, who's busy working over one of the tables. So, when did you figure it out? I suspected it since yesterday when I found out the tax collector's next stop, a one Knopfler Faust, who had substantial taxes to pay. Faust doesn't turn around, but Lars quietly palms a hacksaw from a table nearest the door and walks the long way around the room, trying to put himself between the morgue tools and Faust. You know, the first time was an accident, and it was very hard on me, but I had help. How? I didn't know. You never told me. So, Lars, tell me then, what if I told you? What would you have done? Hmm? I... Faust turns. His mouth, chin, and neck are painted in blood. His smile stretches wide. The whites of his teeth barely show through. His eyes were wide, hinting at a mixed state of ecstasy and psychosis. Then his face suddenly relaxes. His expression changes. You've been a good friend to me, Lars, but... Faust sets down the scalpel on the dissection table. The body from earlier now has its lower jaw and neck cut out. But you weren't the help I needed. For what it's worth, Lars, I'm sorry. Lars's eyes swell, nearly popping out of their sockets. His voice caught in his throat. He appears to be choking. Lars is frozen in place, with only the tiniest of movements and tremors in his fingers and feet. His neck appears to be concaved in on itself slowly, as if something invisible is constricting it. His eyes quickly scan the room and then settle back on Faust, who is now right in front of him, smiling sadistically. Gradually, Lars' face begins to redden. His blood vessels bulge on his forehead, then his skin turns a hue of purple. Faust calmly walks right past Lars over the single window of the morgue, then stops and turns to face Lars. Lars' eyes begin to waver. He uses the last of his strength and consciousness to keep them open. Faust then shuts the window, and darkness fills the room. Lars drops to the ground with a thud, and he desperately inhales for air, but immediately chokes on it, his throat unable to perform. In between the desperate breaths and coughs, Lars looks up at Faust. He isn't sure and tries to blink away the sight. It has to be from the lack of air, he thought. But even still, floating next to Faust was a dark figure, more shadow than substance. This thing had what appeared to be a black cloak or robe, but it was bellowing, despite there being no airflow in the room. No feet, no legs. Lars was confused. He looked up. The face was nearly impossible to make out in any detail, but what was clear were the eyes, red, demonic eyes. Lars then sighed in defeat. Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that short story. I did. Today we're going to talk about the Wraiths in Pathfinder 2e. But before we get into the stat block, let's go and talk about their history and their description. Wraiths are malevolent undead who drain life and shun the light. Their shadowy incorporeal forms are dotted with burning eyes that reflect their hatred for the living, and their shadowy claws are a weapon enough to steal the vitality of their enemies. A Wraith may be created by foul necromancy, but more often they are the result of hermetic murderers or a mutilator who even in death could not give up their wicked ways. Further complicating the matter is the fact that Wraiths multiply by consuming and transforming the living into their foul kind, meaning a handful of Wraiths left unchecked can easily turn into a horde of darkness. Wraiths weigh nothing and are unharmed by most physical attacks. They haunt any place where they can feed on the living, though their vulnerability to sunlight confines them to the shadowy places of the world, places where they can blend in seamlessly with the dark surroundings before silently engulfing their prey. Wraiths may form pacts with others of their kind in places where death and mayhem are commonplace, being countrysides ravaged by war, metropolitan underworlds run by criminal overlords, or sites of fiendish cultic rituals. In these places, the living do well to tread with sunrods and powerful clerics in tow. Ruins, sewers, and abandoned buildings provide sanctuary for Wraiths during the day, as the creatures hunt exclusively at night or in dark places. Wraiths are smart enough to take advantage of their incorporeality in combat, so they keep to torturous caverns or structures with hallways and avoid open areas. As they're formed purely of anti-life from the negative energy plane, Wraiths pervade that unholy realm. Within nations and civilizations ruled by the undead, Wraiths have places of power as assassins and spies. They're among the ruling class in Geb, but have greater numbers in Ustalav, where packs of Wraiths roam graveyards and misty trails, consuming the populations of entire villages. In other parts of the world, Wraiths tend not to wander and limit their activity to smaller environments, typically just the site of their chosen haunting and immediate surroundings. Okay, moving on to the Wraith stat block. It is a level 6 creature. The stat block itself can be found on page 335 of the Pathfinder Bestiary. The Wraith is lawful evil. It is incorporeal and undead and Wraith feature types. It has a perception of plus 14, dark vision of course, life sense out to 60 feet. GMs don't confuse this life sense with that of the player's feet. The player's feet is a lot less, like 10 feet, and is imprecise, while the creature ability type life sense doesn't have the imprecise, and it actually is very good. So make sure you don't confuse the two when using them. The languages known by the Wraith are Common and Necro. The Wraith has acrobatics of a plus 14, intimidation plus 15, and stealth plus 14. Its abilities are minus 5 to strength, plus 4 to dexterity, plus 0 to constitution, plus 2 to intelligence, plus 2 to wisdom, and plus 5 to charisma. It comes with the life sense ability, which carries the divination and divine trait types. Wraiths sense the vital essence of living and undead creatures within the listed range. So remember that, life sense 60 feet. It has an AC of 24, a fortitude save of plus 8, a reflex save of plus 14, and a will save of plus 14 as well. It also has a plus 1 status to all saves versus positive, so like positive energy type damage. It comes with 80 hit points. It has the negative healing trait, so that would of course be it heals from negative energy and is damaged by positive energy and vice versa. It has the following immunities: the death effect, disease, paralyzed, poison, precision, unconsciousness. Now, the Wraith's resistances are a bit confusing. In the stat block, it says resistances all are 5. So 5 resistance to everything except for force, ghost touch, or positive. And then you can double the resistances versus non-magical damage. One other way to look at this is, as long as it's non-magical, the Wraith will have 10 resistances to everything except for force, ghost touch, or positive. Just remember, has to be non-magical. And if it is non-magical, then you apply the 5. The Wraith also has the Sunlight Powerlessness trait. A Wraith caught in sunlight is stunned 2 and clumsy 2. It does come with an attack of opportunity, do not forget this. It has a fly speed of 40, it does not walk, it does not move on the ground, obviously with no legs, that's going to be kind of hard. It has 1 melee attack, the Spectral Hand, with a plus 17 to hit. Its damage is 2d8 plus 5 negative, plus the Drain Life effect. The Drain Life has the Divine and Necromancy traits. When the Wraith damages a living creature with its Spectral Hand strike, the Wraith gains 5 temporary hit points, and the creature must succeed at a DC 23 Fortitude save or become drained 1. Further, damage dealt by the Wraith increases the amount of drain by 1 on a failed save to a maximum of drained 4. Wraith Spawn has the Divine and Necromancy traits. A living humanoid slain by a Wraith's Spectral Hand rises as a Wraith Spawn after 1d4 rounds. This is going to be a nightmare for long combats. This Wraith Spawn is under the command of the Wraith that killed it. It doesn't have Drain Life or Wraith Spawn, and becomes Clumsy 2 for as long as it is a Wraith Spawn. If the creator of the Wraith Spawn dies, the Wraith Spawn becomes a full-fledged, autonomous Wraith itself. It regains its free will, gains Wraith Spawn, and is no longer clumsy. And now that's your basic Wraith. I'd like to move on to the Dread Wraith, which is basically a Wraith just leveled up. It's a creature level 9, and its biggest difference between the Wraith and this new Dread Wraith is its draining presence. It comes with the aura and negative traits, out to 10 feet. A creature entering the aura must succeed at a DC 26 Fortitude save or become drained 1. It recovers after it has been out of the aura for 1 minute. This drained condition value is cumulative, with the drained value caused by the drained life. So players, this combination can be pretty deadly. A creature that succeeds at its save is temporarily immune to the draining presence for 24 hours. Now let's move over to the Smog Wraith. Think Wraith but with more smoke and pollution. Its creature level is 9, and its stats are a bit beefier than your normal Wraith, but where the Wraith and the Dread Wraith have Drain Life and Draining Presence, respectively, this Smog Wraith comes with a Noxious Smog and a lesser, but I think more flavorful, Floating Corpse ability. Starting with the Noxious Smog, which comes with the Aura and Conjuration and Poison traits. It has a range of 30 feet, and creatures within the aura are concealed, and creatures outside the aura are concealed to creatures within it. A creature that ends its turn within the aura must attempt a DC 25 Fortitude save. Now, GMs, it's not exactly clear here. Does the Smog Wraith's Noxious Smog center on themselves, the Wraith that is, or can it be simply that they have 30 feet range where they can just create this thing? Frankly, I would rule the former. It's centered on the Wraith itself, and it has 30 feet that around it where the smog is kind of floating around it. What's nasty here is even on a successful roll, you still suffer consequences. Sickened 1 being the case, and it becomes a progressively worse all the way to the critical failure, giving the creature Sickened 2 and Slowed 1 while within the cloud. Very nasty. Though the Smog Wraith spawn is differently named, it works very much the same as the earlier described Wraith spawns and the Wraith and the Dread Wraith. Just its name's changed. Lastly, the Floating Corpse ability, in my humble opinion, is particularly flavorful. A Smog Wraith's victims are imbued with an eerie buoyancy. Corpses of creatures float up to 30 feet in the air while inside the Wraith's noxious smog aura. Though the Wraith has no control over the corpses or their movement, I feel this is very cinematic, and if your players walk into the lair of the Smog Wraith, they see floating corpses floating about, it's pretty freaky. And good flavor. Let's move on to the Iodara, and I hope I got the pronunciation of that, but this is the Iodara Wraith, which is a rare type of Wraith and better used against your players at higher levels. It is a creature level 18, and besides having very high stats, its biggest difference between your basic Wraith is it gains the teleportation attachment reaction, and the dimensional shunt ability, and the instantaneous movement ability, and loses its ability to spawn others of its kind like the prior described Wraiths. Starting with the teleportation attachment, which is a reaction and comes with the conjuration and teleportation traits. On a trigger, a creature within 60 feet uses a teleportation effect. The effect for the Wraith then becomes it teleports to that creature, arriving in an empty space of its choice adjacent to the creature that triggered this effect. If the triggering effect targets multiple creatures, the Iodara Wraith chooses which creature it arrives besides. Next, the ability Dimensional Shunt comes with the arcane, conjuration, and teleportation traits. The Iodara Wraith's touch displaces creatures and flings them through space. The creature must attempt a DC Fortitude save or suffer some of the following effects. On a critical save, the creature is unaffected and becomes temporarily immune to this dimensional shut for 1 minute. On a success, the creature is pushed 5 feet in a random direction. On a failure, the creature is teleported 20 feet in the direction the Iodara Wraith chooses. On a critical failure, the creature is also stunned for 2 minutes and suffers the prior. The last ability it has is instantaneous movement. It comes with the arcane, conjuration, and teleportation traits. An Iodara Wraith moves by means of localized teleportation. An Iodara's Wraith stride does not have the movement trait. When Iodara Wraith strides, it reaches its destination within range of its speed immediately, so just boom, flies. Well, this is all I have on the Wraiths today. Thank you for joining me. I really enjoyed doing this video, and I look forward to doing the next one. If you liked my videos, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out and gets my content out there. Thanks again.